So this video was just requested and this is a really good idea to talk about this. So I'm going to do a quick video on this. The worst synastry aspects. So the most difficult aspects to see in the synastry chart, the relationship astrology chart comparison between two people. So this is a great opportunity for me to say that no one aspect will make or break your relationship. If an astrologer tries to tell you there's one aspect that you better run from the entire relationship, they are wrong, because any aspect can be workable, and sometimes our souls pick difficult relationships for lesson learning, and you never know really why a soul is in a relationship. It's not the astrologer's duty to advise people for or against relationships. But if all of the aspects are negative, and you'll start to get an intuitive sense of this, if the chart is more negative than positive and more difficult than beneficial, that's when you just need to be aware. So the first difficult aspect that I'm going to talk about is the Sun square to Uranus in the synastry chart. This aspect seems to bring out the most egotistical qualities in the Sun person and the most rebellious qualities in the Uranus person. And it can be like a constant state of tension and battle and ugliness that can come out of this aspect. So this is one to look out for in your synastry chart. And it will feel really hard too when you have the Sun square Uranus aspect in your synastry chart to let the other person win sometimes, but you really have to if this is going to be a workable relationship, because it seems with this one aspect both people just become so difficult. So that's definitely one to watch out for. The next aspect, while we're at it, let's talk about the Moon square to Uranus in the synastry chart. So this one is a bit different, but still very difficult. The Moon person can end up feeling that their emotions are not understood, or that their deepest feelings in their heart is just kind of disregarded by the Uranus person at times. And the Uranus person can feel that the Moon person is too emotional or too clingy, or just never giving them a break, never giving them their freedom. And both people can really feel unhappy or uncomfortable in this relationship with the Moon square to Uranus. But it's a bit different, that the Moon person ends up being more hurt than the Uranus person. And if this aspect is going in a double whammy, meaning one person's Moon is square to the other person's Uranus and vice versa, it's happening on both ways, and then it's happening in the composite chart too, oh my goodness, this can be a really unstable relationship that feels really up in the air and feels like, what is even going on? One person can end up being really hurt, or even both people can end up being very emotionally damaged by this relationship. Other Uranus squares don't seem to be as difficult as those two between the Sun and Moon, because the Sun and Moon are our biggest lights, right? And the rest of the aspects between Uranus seem more manageable, although they can be difficult too. Now, I should mention all squares to Neptune, although these are difficult because we're not always seeing the other person very clearly. It can also be okay because a certain level of delusion in a relationship is actually healthy, because it's that romance, it's that, seeing the other person in the highest and best potentially inaccurate way. But it is something to look out for if there are a lot of Neptune squares. That can be very, very difficult, where one person, when the rose-colored glasses comes off, is very hurt, or sometimes both people are very hurt. Now, inconjuncts to Neptune would be equally as difficult. Oppositions, the reason I haven't mentioned oppositions in this video yet is because there is a more higher likelihood of balance with the opposition, because with the opposition we actually are compatible because we have what the other lacks. So it can be difficult, but it can also be very good. That's why I haven't mentioned the opposition in this video, and I'm really emphasizing the square, because the square is more like a state of constant tension and battle. So there will be a part 2, but I'm just going to keep this video short today. But one thing I want to mention is looking at the synastry chart is just half the picture. You want to also look at the composite and or the Davison chart to see what the actual story of the relationship is, because sometimes what will happen is like we could have a double whammy square in the synastry, right? Like let's say we have, let's talk about a difficult one. We got a double whammy Mars square Pluto in the synastry, where we have Mars squaring Pluto going both ways, but then in the composite chart we have Mars trine Pluto. And what that shows, and this is really common to see, what that shows is that while the interaction is very difficult at the synastry level, when we actually combine together as a couple, we make it work, and it actually works out as a positive lesson for both of us. So that's something you want to look at as well. Now, if it's a square and then it's a square in the composite, that's pretty scary. But if it's a double whammy hard aspect in the synastry and then a positive aspect in the composite or a conjunction, it just shows a major relationship theme. And sometimes we can have a really difficult time relating with someone, but the way that we actually combine it as a couple is positive and beneficial.